Are you in love with turning everything into a toy? Well, for soap makers, with much thanks to the internet for inspiring creative ideas, we can turn soap into modeling clay, or sometimes called soap dough, and then make cute little effects to add to our soapy creations. In this episode of Thermal Mermaid, I'm going to show you how I make my soap clay and give you the basic idea on how this formula is a little bit different from some of the popular recipes already out there. Of course, if you appreciate the topics in this video, please give me a feedback and hit that thumbs up button so I know what kind of content you like and I can offer more information in future videos. And if you'd like to see more soap making videos in the way we craft our projects at Thermal Mermaid, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you can see what new creations are born in the soap studio in the next weeks to come. Okay, for those of you who are non-soap makers out there, let me explain what soap clay is. When we're making soap through the cold process method, we typically craft a design and then set the soap aside for 24 hours so that the bars will harden and can be sliced into bar-sized pieces. If we prevent the soap from curing, then the water will remain in the soap and it will stay soft like a ball of dough. And if the recipe is formulated just right, it will take on the texture of clay, and this will let us make little clay sculptures and add creative effects to the soap. Now, this isn't meant for children to play with, although it sounds like it could be. When cold processed soap hasn't cured, the lye in the recipe isn't exactly inert, and it's possible the soap can burn or irritate your hands, so wearing gloves is sometimes required. Typically, once the clay has been made and it's been stored for a few days, there's no problem in touching it, but still, this just isn't meant for children to play with. And for those of you who already are soapers, in just a moment I'm going to describe why what I'm doing is just a little bit different from what you've already seen out there. Pretty much any cold process recipe is going to turn into a modeling clay texture at some point a few hours after it's made. And some recipes will be more crumbly and some will be too sticky, but most recipes are usable as dough at first. It's when it comes to storing it and pulling it out later and working with it in a smooth clay-like texture that you want, and the quality of the recipe starts to show itself after the dough has been left and expected to hold up for several weeks. In this video, I've made a pound of my cold process base and I've split it into 4 parts. Now this is just for the colors that I need for an upcoming project, and you can split your clay into however many parts you want to color, or just one color if you want to. There are no other additives or fragrance that go into this recipe. Now if you look for soap dough recipes online, there are plenty posted out there on the internet, and you'll see one thing that they all have in common, and that's that they all use babassu oil. Now I can't give you that recipe because there are people out there who have published their own work in books that they sell, but if you look online you'll find different versions of this available. Babassu oil is a soft, supple, rich oil, and it makes a beautiful soap dough that you can work with, and one of its best qualities is that you can come back to it after it's been stored for several weeks and the texture and the quality will still hold up. And this means you can sculpt beautiful little things for a long time and get the most out of your clay. One small obstacle is that it's one of the more expensive oils out there. And that means if you're trying to practice making things and they don't come out the way you like the first time, you're going to go through some practice pieces. And if you're making many pieces so that you can sell your soap, you might have a specific price point in mind depending on what part of the country you live in. And when it comes to selling low-price luxury items, well, the pennies do add up, so you have to be careful. Now, don't let this hold you back from making a luxury quality product with the best art that you can craft. If the numbers work for your project, then I would say do that. But if you're looking for an alternative, then try experimenting in another way. Now, I don't use babassu oil. Instead, I use a combination of 90% hard oils and butters, and instead of babassu, I use 20% palm shortening. Now, palm shortening isn't as supple and silky as babassu oil, but it is fluffy, it's pliable and soft, and the finished result is a soap dough that looks and feels just like modeling clay. The most important part, however, is that it stores very well, and as long as you keep it airtight, you can pull it out and you can use it for weeks and it will stay just like clay. One of the leading qualities of using palm shortening is that it holds up, it lasts for a very long time, and it can be acquired for anywhere from 4 to 6 cents an ounce. Now that's a pretty drastic change from babassu oil, which typically can run about 80 cents an ounce. Now, it's not a terrific amount of oil that you're using in these recipes, but if you're making multiple pieces and you're making soap dough or soap clay regularly, then this can get pricey over time. Babassu oil is also more of an exotic oil, and it's not readily available on your Walmart store shelves or your restaurant supply stores, so typically you need to send out for it at a soap supply retailer, which means you'll also have to pay a shipping charge. The palm shortening, on the other hand, is readily available, and you can often find a place where you can go and pick it up in your normal daily driving activities. Let me show you what this looks like after it's been wrapped in an airtight container and shelved for 6 weeks. Here, I have a piece of red soap clay in an airtight container, and it's been wrapped in plastic. I made this 6 weeks ago, and I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to make a few small apples as a demonstration. Now you can see that this soap looks and acts just like real modeling clay. And typically, I need to work with it for just a few minutes exactly in the same way that you would with a piece of clay that's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So after a minute, it becomes soft and pliable, and the texture is beautiful. So what happens if you've gotten moisture in the container where you're storing your clay? If the soap's been exposed to extreme moisture, it won't usually be ruined, but it may be tacky and unpleasant to work with, and the color might transfer onto your fingers or gloves. If this happens, then just dust your fingertips with a touch of cornstarch, or dust your working surface with the cornstarch and then let the starch absorb the moisture. And in just a few minutes, you'll be right back in business. Now this is meant to be just dusted lightly. You don't want to actually incorporate too much cornstarch into the recipe itself. It's just meant to pick up the moisture on the surface so you can get right back to the correct texture. And as you can see, in just about no time, I start having cute little embeds to add to the tops of my cold process projects. Now this only takes a few minutes, and they can be used immediately. So once you make your clay items, you can move right into your main project or your frosted piping, and your little embeds are ready to go. I hope you enjoyed watching the method that I use to make soap clay and experiment with your formula. If you'd like my full recipe, you can find it posted in the Thermal Mermaid Members Recipe Directory. And also, if you'd like to support this channel, please consider signing up as a Patreon. Patreon members will receive my full recipes, additional video tutorials if you're a soap maker, and if you just like watching soap making videos, Patreon members also receive these handmade items packaged and delivered to your door every month. And don't forget, if you're working on your artisan soap projects and you want support or you want help with new ideas, feel free to join us over at the Thermal Mermaid Soap and Bath Facebook group for free, where you can interact in real person. And here are my little apples ready to find their homes on top of a new soapy creation.